a couple of minutes. Hey, folks, we're here. It's me, the Cosmic Mama, Terry out there in Winnipeg, and Arkheim Ra here with Disclosure Now. You all you are an SSP experiencer, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
So now are you? What is Disclosure Now? What's that about? Tell me about this.
Basically, just to me, what it is there's uh human abilities and esoteric technologies that are being hidden and stifled and purposely covered up, and the abilities that do exist and the technologies that do exist are being covered up so that instead of them benefiting humanity, they can be used to enslave humanity. That's basically the message of Disclosure Now. And also the fact that mind control is a really big problem, psychological manipulation is a really big problem, and we are anti-mind control. So the whole idea is to just try our best to break through the wall of disinformation and psychological manipulation, and to really get at that core truth of what is happening not only on Earth but in the solar system, the galaxy, the multiverse. Just really just dive into what is actually going on.
Right. So I've met you before, love you. You're just like can't help but be anybody else but yourself. We met at Journey to the Truth, and then you got to speak at Full Disclosure Now conference. I don't know if you had any thoughts, anything you wanted to say about that. The videos are already out. Look at that.
I just thought it was a great conference. Everybody did really great. And I had a great time, and it was good to do my first presentation, and I think it lit a fire under a lot of our butts and just kind of got a burning in our heart to like just do more and get this movement out there more. And yeah, the biggest thing that I always learn from these events too is the speakers are great. That's a really cool aspect to these things, but also there's the aspect of that we just get to all hang out, which is really the best part. So which was
Right.
great. Yeah, it's great to hang out with you in person and stuff. So yeah, it was a fun time.
Always. And your lovely partner. And
Yeah,
Matthew
Cat.
Kat, yeah, Matthew got, and you know what? I was like, yay, Kat, thanks for talking to me. Like, way, she's a quiet, gentle spirit. And then it's like, wow, she's really talking a lot. So she's really getting used to me now. Matthew had his first presentation. So did Susan. There were some firsts. Christopher and Jacobs, I got to meet him. Finally got to meet Misha for the first time. So many people that and you also worked with Alondra during your presentation. Was that
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Yeah, that was me. Yeah, we did our presentation together, which is
How did that end up happening?
well, I wasn't really a part of the scheduling, and he originally was scheduled to speak at the same time as me, and I thought that seemed kind of silly because we'd be talking about the Montauk project. It's like, okay, well, let's just talk about it together, give somebody else that stage. to do something else like energy work or something, whatever. I don't know who was speaking at the same time as us because there are two stages, but it ended up being a great presentation, and he really was able to dive into the multi-reality aspect of things, and just the fact that there are these different timelines that are existing at the same time, which is really kind of that's one of the things that we're here to help humanity understand, I guess, now in this current incarnation and mission that we're doing right now. To help people understand the multiple timelines and to not be so freaked out by it anymore, because it's going to be part of the public domain, as it were, in the future. There's a lot of stuff going on where all the different realities are interacting with each other and stuff like that to protect each other from omnipresent, super powerful AI that eats realities. So that's one of the things that's happening behind the scenes.
Okay, so Zachary, I'm just gonna put some stuff out there. I don't know if you guys saw it. The Zender brother and sister couple. It was their first time speaking. Zachary and Sue Fisher. They started an event on the beach called the what is it? The Day of Being. And so
Yeah,
this was their third year with the Day of Being. And so then now this conference is the sister to that event. So it's like a continuous week long um, just a blending of different activities, different people. There was a ball, things like that. And the two founders, I can't miss Robert Khalil. Got to meet Robert Khalil, typical skeptic, on that trip, and then Ida and Brian. So, are is that a part of the channel that you're a part of now? Disclosure now, this channel,
yeah,
or
Brian. Brian. Well, there's an echo going on, by the way. There's some echo going on. Okay, but Brian, yeah, we met through. Really, we met because he just started reaching out to people, and he reached out to me, and we just started talking about disclosure and stuff like that, and he organized the Montauk trip, and then I had to get out of Appleton, where I'm from, because it's like this MK Ultra town that was really bad for me. And he basically kind of helped me out, and I had a spot to stay with him for a while in Winnemucca, which I didn't stay there for. I stayed there for like 3 or 4 months. Like I just didn't really like living like in a small town in the desert. He loves it. It's not for me. So I ended up moving, so I don't live with him anymore. But like basically, like me and Brian are really good friends. Like we know each other from like I've lived with him, so it's not just somebody I know on the internet. And yeah, he's just like an organizer is what you would call it, right? Like he's organizing people. So he's not necessarily like somebody that experienced anything like that, which I think is he did probably. He's probably experienced stuff. I think it's just way more common than people realize. But he's more of like somebody who's just trying to organize things, like not go on the internet and say like, "Oh, I was on a spaceship" or whatever. He's more of like just trying to help other people unite. And what's interesting about that, which I always feel strange talking about, but I really do think there's an aspect of like of Brian's life and where he is now and his ability to organize these conferences and stuff like that. I do think it is kind of part of stuff that's been set up behind the scenes through time missions and stuff like that. And I think Brian's there's so people talk about how they manipulate the timeline to make all these bad things happen. I think the timeline is sometimes manipulated to make good things happen too. And I think that Brian and the work that he's doing is literally he's part of the program to try to help fix things. So I'm not claiming that as fact, but from like the things that I remember that I experienced, like that's what I think, because like it's kind of a complicated story, but it would take up the whole interview to explain Brian's story. But yeah, he's got a calling to be part of this too, and he's an important part of the Disclosure Now channel. And he organized that whole conference. Like I mean, it was him, Ida, and all these other people. But like Brian was obviously a really huge part of it. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, so that's where Brian comes into things. And yeah, full disclosure movement.org. It happens every year. And yeah, physically meeting, it's a really important thing to do. It's a really great conference, and it's really open. That's the word I would use to describe it. It's an open environment for sure. Like everybody just hanging out. I can't hear you.
And so if you're interested in anything that he just said, there's the full disclosure now. No, full disclosure movement.org. You can see the link on on the screen, and you can go, and there's so many videos. There were so many speakers, so many videos, things that, I mean, if you're interested in Egypt, technology, mining, asteroids, all
Yeah,
kinds of,
it goes into all of it, like
it
all of
goes
the full,
into so many
and it's
areas.
under the umbrella of just like full disclosure. So it's like it is an SSP conference, like Secret Space Program conference, like for sure, 100%. But at the same time, like energy healing and like crystals and all that fun like stuff that people have at other conferences, like it's at our conference too, because it is all part of it's all part of it, right? So yeah, and it's on, it's unfortunate that it just happened, but it will be happening next year, and it's worthy talking about it because people will see this later and stuff, that like, yeah, it's gonna happen every year in St. Petersburg, and really high energy event. Can't recommend it enough. I had a great time with everybody. Learned so much in such a short amount of time. I mean, if you want to be
Right.
educated about what's going on, like you're gonna pack in a lot of information in a short amount of time for sure.
And we literally didn't want to leave. And I don't think, oh my God, it's Brian's birthday today.
It's Brian's birthday. Yeah, it's the Solar Beast birthday. And was there a question before? I'm sorry I didn't get to answer it. Somebody had a question that was on the screen.
Was there a question?
I don't know. There was a
If
statement
it
or
was,
something.
we'll get back to it. But I just wanted to stress the importance of, like, it is next year. If you're interested in catching the videos that you missed this year and seeing people, then go to that link and you can find it. And we're going to keep talking about it as we continue to meet up with people who have been there to speak about it, because it was worthwhile, and we really had a good time, and it was really, yeah, it was really great. And so basically this is what we would call these get-togethers, we would call the community, right? This is
Hmm.
what
This
we
is
call,
it.
this is the community. And so there's different pockets and different communities, but all together, working together for the purpose of basically what I would believe that most of us are coming together for is disclosure. I mean, there are some people who are on fringe, and
Hmm.
fringe being psychic and abilities and technology, that aren't really thinking about disclosure in the way that we are. But it all just ripples out into these waves of disclosure, of people taking their life in their hands and taking your health in your hands, getting knowledge, and going beyond what you've been told to discover what life is really about for yourself, and learning. And so the other day you had a really strong discussion because you had some concerns, and I don't know if you want me to ask you or you want to just go ahead and come out with it, because I noticed, I'll just say this, I noticed in 2020, me and Terry had this discussion before, that some of us were worried about saving the children, and some of us were worried about the truth, right? So there was truthers, and then there was save the children, and then mixed up in there, a whole bunch of people began to share some of the what seemed like similar interests, but then not really knowing that there was propaganda being thrown at us. Because I'll tell you, there's truthers, Trumpers, and then there's like disclosure people, then there's UFO people, but there was also a Mormon movement going on in the middle, and they were throwing some stuff. They were throwing out memes, and some of them were good, and some of them were like, I don't know, this is, I don't
I
know.
didn't know the Mormons were a big part of it. I don't remember
Oh,
that
I
part, but
thought, honey, because their political candidates were Republican, and so they were going along
hmm
with a lot
that
of the
makes
Trump.
sense.
And then they were also talking about save the children, because what about the trans agenda and stuff like that. So they were
Yeah,
mixing.
yeah. I always think that's kind of funny with the Mormons because there's so much weird stuff that happens to
Right.
children and women in their sphere, and like them having multiple wives and marrying them when they're like 13 and stuff like that. So that's it's kind of like, okay, like a lot of people like to self project, I think, and they like to And like for instance, like
Well, they're
the,
politicians and they have their own movement because they're politicians and they're on the Republican ticket and they're promoting the ideas. Even though you're behind the door doing whatever it is you do, you promote this glassy smile. Like one woman that friended me, she was this super blonde, pretty woman, and I was like, okay, that's great. I don't know how she knows me. And she had like 7 kids and her own talk show, and like it was politics basically.
yeah,
Not
I
just
see these people. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, they're blended in there. So then Terry, there were some other people mixed in there too. Can you remember any of the? There were just there's fundamentalist Christians were mixed in there. There were so it was like it looked like everybody was together, but what it really was this thing where all these memes were coming out and all these videos, and then there were AI generated videos, and you were discussing that, and I think it was very concerning because one of the things that I noticed even in 2017 as this stuff had started to ramp up was that that's the dog, Christopher. There's a little dog, right? With a is it a dog or is it a cat with the bell?
Mine.
Yeah, the
You
jingle
hear a
bell.
bell? Oh yeah, they're playing with one of their toys. Yeah.
Yeah, it's the cats, y'all. It's the cats. So what I noticed was there was videos and they were talking about, they were using satanic symbology to talk about all the celebrities, and it had like this ominous music, but at the same time I was like, this isn't for us to learn. This is actually to embed negativity. It was actually some stuff being put in there to get to for attachments purpose, for the purpose of putting hooks and attachments in people. And so then there's a picture of Michelle Obama in an
I
orange
think
jumpsuit.
yeah, there's I think the biggest thing that they really are just trying to do is just divide people, right? Like just divide people. And it doesn't matter how they do it or what's true or what's not true or even what's like right or wrong, as long as they're just dividing people. That's the point. Because what you have is a ruling class of ultra rich people that are controlling everything using the vast swaths of money that they have, and they're finding all these issues, like for instance, like the trans thing that people keep on talking about so much right now. Like, I'm not saying people shouldn't talk about it or like it doesn't matter or whatever, but I mean, if you're talking about that and arguing with that and not getting along with people over something like that, which is like this really like ideological issue more than like a quality of life, like us like confronting like the elite, like it is a quality of life thing too. I don't know, I just think people should be able to, I guess the point I'm trying to make is like they're using these issues to divide people, and I do understand that there are weird things happening. There's strange things going on. Like they're putting chemicals in the food that which this is something that I knew about before. This is years ago before anyone was talking about transgender people a lot or anything like that. Is the fact that like the microplastics make men have less testosterone, and there's all these weird chemicals in the water that can mess with our hormones. So there's an aspect where maybe they are engineering this thing and making it more prevalent. But then there's also the aspect of like, okay, well then the things that people are experiencing like are real, like, and their body might even be experiencing changes and stuff like that. So just don't write them off as people, because I don't know. I just think it comes to, here's the point that I'm trying to make. I guess it's like I have friends around me in my life that are transgender. I grew up and I've seen people transition, and I have friends who I knew them before they transitioned, and I know them after, right? And I just wouldn't be in their life if I was like, hey, I don't agree with you being like transgender, like like you're mentally ill or whatever. I'm not gonna call you by like whatever name. I'm not gonna call you by he or she or whatever it is. It just would be a waste of time to me, and that's where I'm like, this is why it seems like a distraction to me. And also I feel sorry for people who On both sides, I feel sorry for people who lose people over this issue in their lives, because it's like whatever, who cares? I respect people and their beliefs, and that's how I always try to be. And people think that's like, some people say it's placating a mental illness or whatever, but it's like I always just respect people's identity and the way they feel. And another thing, not to just go on a rant about it, people are always like, oh, but what about like them doing the surgeries on themselves and the hormones and stuff like that? That's an ideological thing. I don't know. Like, I'm from a place where like you can just go in a new body. Like, there's societies that like exist like that. You can just put, and it, to me, it's like I understand like why that freaks people out and stuff like that. But I think that if society wasn't so weird about it, because they're trying to look and present themselves as like, if someone that is trans female, they don't want people to be like, oh, that's a trans person. They want them to just think they're a female. So they go through great lengths to do that. What if we had a society that just like accepted people's trans identities? Then maybe they wouldn't feel the need to do surgery. And then even if they do, that's their thing. Like, I think like what people do with their own bodies is like a huge thing, and both crowds could maybe learn from each other, because I know like the whole bodily autonomy thing, like a lot of people that talk about how do I say it with getting out the pants sensors, the thing that happened in 2020, a lot of the people that didn't go along with the agenda were talking about bodily autonomy and like, hey, I can do what I want with my body. And it's kind of like the same thing on that side, but people are also like, I'll bring up the other thing that people always bring up is the kids. They're like, oh, but they shouldn't turn kids in trans and da 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 da. And I'm sorry to waste so much time on talking about this, but I guess it is important because people keep on bringing it up. I see it everywhere, and yeah, I don't agree with like some like 6-year-old kid doing surgery on themselves, like going to bed. I personally don't. I did like. I don't think that's happening. I think they can do puberty blockers at a certain point, but I don't think you can do surgery on a kid. I do think it has to be a certain point. If they're trying to change the laws, then that is an ideological question where people are like, okay, is this okay? And I have to say, I don't have a horse in that race. I don't have a trans kid. I'm not trans myself, but I would say, yeah, you should probably be an adult, I guess, if you want to get surgery. That's a really big decision. Um, but I don't know. I literally am willing to admit that I don't know everything. I do think it's that like, and then another thing too is people say, oh, well, what about the MAPS, meaning minor attracted persons, and they're saying it's a part of the LGBT now. Look, I'm actually know these people in real life. They're not just clickbait articles on the internet, and nobody thinks that's okay. And what actually, from what I've seen in the LGBT community, is age gaps and what you would call groomers and stuff like that. I feel like it's called out more, actually, to be honest with you, than with straight people. Because like you've seen it, like look at all like throughout history, you can see it with like movie stars, rock stars, like Mick Jagger, Elvis, like all these people. So many of them were predatory, and then they just get a pass for some reason. And now all of a sudden it's only the trans people that are that way or something. And a lot of the people are from like the church, like the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church, which both of those institutions, they have pedophilia, they have that happening, and it's like a scapegoat for them. It's like a look over here, not over here kind of thing. Look over there, not over here, because it's like that's a cornerstone staple of their religion. And then another aspect of this too is Baphomet being androgynous. People think that if you're androgynous, that means you're evil, which isn't necessarily true. And inverting gender, that means that you're satanic. That isn't necessarily true either. Some of the Satanists do invert their kids' gender at birth as a part of a ritual, that's wrong. That's 100% wrong. That's something that you should decide. You don't do that as a part of a ritual. The person decides that themselves because they know themselves better than anybody else can. So I do disagree with that. I do disagree with things like that. But people have to have nuance and understand, like, and also just because we're seeing it more now doesn't mean that it didn't always exist. There are trans people throughout history, more recently, but like Wendy Carlos, she did like the first Tron soundtrack, and then there's a Pharaoh back in the day, and there's people throughout history. So I just think that it's become a thing where we're talking about it more, and maybe that's good, but I don't like I think that could be great to talk about these things, but when we don't learn and we just yell and scream at each other, then that sucks, and I hate to see that. Like, and I know that there has to be social engineering what's going on too. Like, for instance, like the Olympics. Like there's all this stuff going on with the Olympics. All these people are pissed off over this, over that, and with the main key lift thing. Like, look, this is my opinion on it. I'm not saying this is like okay, this is the facts now, but can I just say this real quick? I think it's interesting, regardless. Apparently, they're intersex, from what I understand, which means they're not actually a man like people are claiming, and that's a learning moment for people to understand that intersex people exist. And then maybe, okay, who do they fight? Like, that's a whole ideological question right there. But I will say their name's the main keyleth, and it's literally man, he is in there. You can see it. And subliminal messages are a big thing that they do for mind control programming. And so I feel like people saw their name and interested were like man, he, without realizing that they're being programmed to, regardless of whether it was a man or a woman or not, they think it's a man because man, he is there. And a main keyleth might be totally aware of this too. I might be saying their name wrong, but they might be unaware of this too, or they might be totally aware. I don't know. There is a bunch of weird shit going on with the Olympics though. Like anyone with eyeballs can see that there's weird ceremonies and fucked up shit going on with the Olympics. Like I'm not denying that. Sorry, it was a bit of a rant.
Well, that's why we like you. I will say this: when it comes to a man keyleth, that person has already been removed from being able to box women with the world boxing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know about that. And then so obviously it's just like because it's very strict how they choose these people, right? And I'm not saying they shouldn't have fought. I don't know. A lot of people think that, but the fact that out of all the people that they chose somebody like that, and then all these people get mad.
I'm not really sure why.
It seems like they might have engineered that on purpose. That's what I'm saying.
She's almost 2 feet taller than the other person too, so it really did seem.
Yeah, aren't they supposed to like fight in the same weight class and stuff like that? So like even if she is way bigger than her, like isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Like they're supposed to fight in the same weight class, right?
Is if you're XX and you're XY with the drug test. This would be as if you said the person took what do you call it? The drugs. What is it called? I forget. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not disagreeing with people. I don't know. I'm not willing to admit that. Like I really don't know who. Like I think they should be allowed to box. Who do they box then? I don't know if they're.
This would be as if you had.
I don't have the answers for that.
I do. I feel like I have an answer. My answer is that if you're XY and you're XY and it comes out in your hormones, this would be, if you were fighting a woman, this would be as if you had taken steroids. Because you have your
that makes sense. So that means that maybe she shouldn't be fighting in the women's league then.
Right.
I don't know though. That's the same. That's their opinion, and I'm saying I literally don't have one, and that's okay sometimes.
Oh, that's good.
I just literally don't know who she should fight or where. I'm not a boxer. I'm not intersex. I'm neither of those things. So it's really like, you know what I mean?
Can I say this for people? It's not about you. This is me saying that it's like taking testosterone. So that if I take testosterone and I have testosterone in me or beaver hormones in me, and I fight a woman, I'm going to have an advantage. But it is weird because she's 2 feet, almost looking like 2 feet taller than that person. And so,
yeah, like I have a friend who's a cage fighter, and like the whole thing, like I remember, is like they have to fight in the same weight class. Like, so to me, if she's way bigger, that's like, even that just doesn't make sense to me. I don't know that much about sports and stuff like that. But right. we should move on to something else though. Like we should talk about something.
But we're talking to people. Arkheim, we're talking to other people too. So I just want to say the parts that I know, that I feel. So I'm answering back, and I'm not.
No, I understand.
Okay, so I'm not asking you to know or anything like that. Now, I did notice that you talked about the grooming when it came to male, female, but I also feel like there are women who are predatory that are groomers. They don't really get credit for women being groomers or child molesters. Only it seems like because we're in this anti-patriarchy stage, that in which your brother and your father is not the patriarchy. The patriarchy is the system. So everything that a male does is not patriarchy. I have to say that, but that I can see women or young women who go to school, who have teachers and professors that groom them, but they don't actually get credit for that. They don't get called on it. There's young women who they get boys to cut their grass, and they me too. Like there's, most of the men that I've met that have had sex um with an older woman, they've had sex between the ages of 12 and 14 with an adult woman that is either their teacher, their mother's friend, or a neighbor. But
Really?
I have met a lot of men that have had sex by the time 12 to 14. So even someone who was 10.
I guess I shouldn't be surprised by that.
So what happens, I feel, is like you're saying with Elvis, there's still this other thing going on where women don't get credit for being groomers, even if they're or not, gay or straight, that because of this whole idea of down with the patriarchy, a lot of women aren't being called out and shown that there's a toxic feminine as well as there's a toxic masculine. So I
Yeah,
just want
yeah,
to say
yeah.
that. Now, when it came
Can we
to,
put? Can we make the screens equal again? I feel like out of place.
oh, you feel out of place.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I just want to throw that out there because these are things that people don't really talk about, and I've talked about it before here. That's why I like you having your opinions and then whatever. So there's just a lot going on where it's this person, that person. Now, I think the biggest problem when it comes to trans and kids, the problem is when we have our kids. I teach my son what's important to me. If you're gay or you're trans, you teach your kids what's important to you. And there's a lot of crossing the line on me coming from my side of the fence, going on your side of the fence, telling you what to do with your kids. And I think you agree with that. Like, if that's their kids, whatever they're doing with their kids, it's kind of like, as long as you don't do this to my kids, I kind of have to back up because can you really save other people's kids? And that you could be someone's aunt, right? And however my sister treats her kids or whatever she raises them, and I'm not even talking about gay and trans, just whatever values that that person has in their house, that's theirs. But I think
Hmm.
we've got this big problem with everybody kind of crossing the fence to go in
Yeah,
someone
it's
else's
like everybody's values don't need to be exactly the same. There's certain values that we all need to share, right? Like nonviolence, like respecting other people's beliefs, like stuff like that. There's certain stuff that all across the board, all people have to believe the same thing. But then there's other stuff where it's like, yeah, you're right. Like, does everybody have to believe the same exact thing and look at it all the same exact way? No, and I think that's an amazing conclusion to come to, and that's that. Like, and for me, like I've like lived on planets where they have what are called districts. And so the German people live in their district, the Polish people live in their districts, the African people live in the African district, the Hmong, like the Asian people Hmong. It's not everyone knows who Hmong people are. It's like a group of Asian people. They're out in space on certain planets. They'll have their own districts, and there's certain certificates or stuff you need to be able to granted to be a person from outside a district to go in a district, and they really separate people's ideologies, separate people, and it creates, like I said, the sterile environment that just kind of sucks. And they call the United States the melting pot, right? This is something that when I grew up, adults around me were really proud of that. That like the United States is this multicultural melting pot where you've got country and hip hop and all these different things that come from different backgrounds and different people that make like one country. And yeah, I think that is cool. And I think we're losing that a little bit. We're losing the fact that like not everybody has to have the same exact beliefs and lifestyle to be an American. I think that yeah, we've really thrown that out the window all across the board. People all across the board have to just remember that like it's important to respect people and their beliefs and their lives. But at the same way, yeah, people got there's this whole argument. Well, yeah, well, what about when it crosses into my world? Like, what about when my son, I'm Christian, I come from an evangelical background, and what if my son meets like a trans person and they tell him about trans people, and I don't want that in my world. Look, I don't need to tell you other than like other people exist,
And
other people are gonna think the same things as you. Like that's it's. I just find it hard to respect people who just don't respect other people's beliefs. But yeah,
Oh
all
yeah,
across the board though, like because I feel like sometimes people that like think that like if you're there's also people who think that like for instance like for some people they look at like someone being a mother as this like we were talking about earlier, right? There's some
right.
mentality in the society where people are like, oh, I'm just a mom,
I'm
I'm just a
just a mom.
mom. But a mom being is like the super duper empowering, like amazing like thing that like should be valued by society. But the thing is somebody that decides not to be a mom and goes off and becomes a scientist or whatever the hell it is they want to do as a woman, decide, oh, I don't want to have kids because that take up too much time. That's valuable for society in the same way that a mother's valuable for society. Things don't have to, people don't have to think the same way and live the same way all across the board. You know what I mean?
So I just want to go back to this comment where Kristen says, and I want to say something. Yes, you can save children if you suspect abuse, you can tell. Well, the thing is about this, when we're talking about this in particular with the hormones and stuff, you can suspect all you want. There's medical privacy, and people have fought for the right. And here's where it is when it comes to a psychologist, when you want gender reassignment, you have the right to get it. And if the psychiatrist goes against you, he can actually be sued for being prejudiced against you or biased against you. So they can actually lose their license if they try to convince you to not have your gender reassignment. So
That's
they,
interesting because you know what they say is with the Hippocratic oath, you do an oath to do no harm or whatever, and that's a matter of, I guess, in that situation, belief, right? And so that's really interesting. But yeah, I don't think that like if somebody doesn't want to do that, their practice, they shouldn't. That's wrong.
and
But in the same way
so
that people should be able to do that if they want to, you know what I mean?
so this
Which
young,
some people are against that, and like I said, that goes down to the whole thing where, well, then you don't believe in a person's own autonomy and right to their own autonomy over their own body, and
so I'm gonna finish
that's
with
a line
this.
I don't cross ideologically myself. I'm not willing to do that.
Right. So with this person right here, I watched her whole video because she decided that they wanted to do the surgery, and they took out a piece of his colon to make room for a vagina. They took his penis completely apart. It can't be put back. And now that person understood that they didn't really even have body morphia. What they had was that they felt homophobic, and instead of being labeled as gay, they would rather say, well, I was trying to be a woman so that I wouldn't be gay. And so he goes through his whole story of now trying to go back, and the pain that, there's pain, there's swelling, there's the constant closing of the wound, there's all this
Mhm.
stuff, these medical hormones, because now that you are taking progesterone, you're now,
Yeah,
well, I want to finish.
that sounds terrible.
And they're so now he's also having early set osteoporosis, right? Because you're taking female hormones. So now you have osteoporosis and stuff like that. So what I was trying to let people know is this: you cannot stop a person from doing what they want to do. Like if someone wants,
Mhm.
as much as you'd like to stop a person from driving or whatever it is that they are trying to do, it is within their right to do what they want to do because they have a road to go down and they have to do that. Now, there are also people, if you were really concerned about transgender people and them being hurt, what is more painful to me is what the medical industry is doing that is really
Mhm.
physically hurting them and giving them a false expectation that they're going to have body parts that work, that don't. Because I also had a family member, not a distant family member, that had a female reassigned as male whose penis would not stay attached. So there's these unexpected expectations, these
Yeah,
unfulfilled
no.
desires.
There's money to be made. There's money to be made, and you can make money off of people's insecurities. So if they get people to have gender dysphoria and all these things, and there's an industry where they can make a lot of money off of it. People have to be very careful. And that's why, like, even if I were like this is a hypothetical, if I were transgender, I don't think I would do surgery. And a lot of transgender people that I know they don't. And that's personally the route that I would go. But like, yeah, yeah, there are people that realize it wasn't for them and that they did the wrong thing, and they try to detransition, and that's really hard. And I don't know. Maybe that's like I said. Maybe people shouldn't do that. I don't know. Like I said though, like I
Well,
just
that's
don't
not
feel.
that. Because what I'm coming back to is this is your thought was, and where I began, because I was being drawn into these types of discussions, is to have sympathy for the person. And this is
Mhm,
where people are doing this, and they do require still your love and sympathy because they're still a soul. And where
mhm,
you were coming from, where I saw you discussing this, was coming back to the part of compassion, moving out of the space of judgment and control, but coming back
mhm.
to that. And so that's what I saw in you and your conversation. And that's why I'm bringing this up, because there's people, they're going through different things. And I feel like me, as a person of my age, 50, when I was a teenager, I always dreamt my dreams as a man. Why? Because now, understanding this in my late 40s, that you have been here as a man before so many times, that you have the resonance and memory of this past life. And so, yeah, you do feel weird and masculine and awkward because you're trying to balance male and female energy.
Yeah,
We need to
that's
have compassion
interesting.
for these people. And they are calling, in the book of Merlin, they call them firstborns, because there's people who don't understand this whole cycle, that you do change from male to female, and you come back and you're black and white, and you come back and you're a king, and then you're a slave, and then you're, like, you come back in all these, you play all the parts, the good guy and the bad guy. And so
Mhm.
firstborns don't really understand that. But in the book of Merlin, they said, leave these people alone. They have to go through their experience. And so here you are as a soul, understanding other souls, being more compassionate. And that's kind of, you basically said that, right? Like, I don't have the answer for everybody else. And maybe if we
No.
back up into our own space, I mean, would you really, if you saw a person that was trans, would you really, like, what are you going to do? Kick them? What are you going to do? You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Would
but
you
here's a good example. Like I feel sorry for like Elon Musk. Like he has a daughter that's trans, and like they don't talk because he's like, oh, that's not my daughter. I had a son, not a daughter. It's like, what the fuck is your problem, dude? Like that's your kid. Like,
exactly. What would you
like
do? You're
that's
not
fucked
gonna,
up to me.
well, if you do have this spirit, if you do have the spirit that you would kick your kid out, then I mean, what can a person do for you? If that's you
Yeah,
know
that's
what I
just
mean?
sad
Like,
to me. That's really sad. It's sad to me that two people who obviously are brought in this world, they're supposed to be in each other's lives, right? Like they were born in his family. They're not in each other's lives because of that. That's sad to me. That's the part that I think is sad. It's like the division I see, and you see people that are hateful towards each other over this thing that, man, what the fuck are we? Can we talk about something else? Can we talk about something else? Kind of, like not literally,
okay,
because
I'm just gonna
I'm
go over
glad
these
I'm
two
glad we're talking about this, but like right now, but like I
and
mean,
get
like
you
as a
emotional.
society, like I wish we could just accept people like are gonna be the way they are, whatever. Let's move on. Like and like
Okay, we
okay,
can
we
move
like
on.
but
We
no,
can
I'm not saying
move on.
I'm not saying literally now because you're bringing up all these really great points, and there are two
Okay.
sides to the issue, and I don't want to act like I'm not willing to like admit like there's you know what I mean like and like ask like talk about it like it because I do think like it's unfortunately or fortunately whatever you want to look at it a hot button issue right now. It's a topic that people are talking about, so people are going to be interested in us. Yeah, he says plastic surgeons are extremely wealthy. Exactly. Like it's like kind
And
of
the
like you said,
fact that they're
there's money
using,
to be made off of this issue and stuff like that. But
and
also
if
like
the
you gotta
government is
respect
granting
people's
you
identities.
Medicaid,
I don't know. And like I said,
it's
if
something that people don't know too, that Medicaid and Medicaid is actually paying for this too. So now it's
in
like,
certain
okay,
situations, it depends. It depends on where you are. It depends on what state you're in. Most states
yeah,
don't
well,
don't.
they're using well, here Medicare. It can be used to pay for that. But I mean, I was in the army, so if you get a penis enhancement in the army or a boob job, they also pay for that too.
Yeah, that might
So
have changed a lot too. Because I remember I had a friend who worked at Starbucks, and Starbucks paid for their surgery or whatever. Because although if Medicare would have done that, they probably would want that route. So I
yeah.
don't know if it changed and it's more easy now or what.
And he said, Christopher, you got lots of comments. They're so long though. The medical industry is a monetary vampire, and it's a way to elite middle class and
Yeah,
more.
think. Yeah, look, you really, and you do have to think about, just factor that all in, and think about all that stuff. And I'm not saying don't ask questions and all that, but I'm also saying, like, if you come to a conclusion where you like hate a whole group of people, like whether it's trans people or Jewish people or Muslim people or whatever, like, I think you're coming to the wrong conclusions. If you're just like, oh, these people need to be gone, we need to just get rid of them. Like, I think that's messed up. Like, you need to understand that there are going to be people that don't think the same way as you. That's really important for our society. But yeah, also it's important for us to like talk about and recognize like the issues that it's just a thing, a growing pain in society, if you will. I guess like it's an issue right now. I don't know where it's going to be 20 years from now.
Well, I'm going to tell you why I think it's necessary. Then I think because we had been so pushed into these defined roles where men had to be so tough and they couldn't cry, and women had to be subservient and submissive. And the boat has to, so people have to be extreme left and people have to be extreme right, because it has to shake society up for any type of change, right? If you don't have extremists on both sides, there is no change. And so here we are as spiritual people, we should be in the middle, actually having some, like you say, discernment, because that's going to be your next magic word, is discernment, to understand that these aren't necessarily our arguments. And what I would do is go back for 2017, 2016, 2020, what we were doing. And this is why people were able to mix all these fake memes in here and do all this stuff and get us all excited, is because we got tricked into moving out of a spiritual realm into a political realm.
Yeah. Ooh, you just said it. You just said it. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Wow. That's
We
good.
got
That's
because
good
we were
point.
looking at the issues, and then all of a sudden we turned into like, the hippies who were in Woodstock are now the biggest voters. And I was like, how did those people end up being the
It's
biggest
very
voters,
strange,
most
isn't it?
staunch people? And here it is, the cycle being repeated, where people who were looking at life through spiritual eyes, because why would you be giving your sovereignty to vote for people in this realm when you
Yeah.
know that they're
Mm-hmm.
all
And the
ruiners,
system,
children?
yeah, and the systems are corrupt, and I think that voting is kind of like a form of consent, like giving them your power, and the system's really not going to put anybody in power that's going to like actually hold the keys to the kingdom and be able to really do anything, because as was warned by Eisenhower, we were living in it now, where the military industrial complex controls everything. It just controls everything, man. So it's just like there's no point in voting, because in my opinion they really are deciding who's president, who's not, staging world events. It's all part of the psychological manipulation. They're
Right.
psychologically manipulating they have a whole division of the military called the Psychological Operations Division, and they have multiple groups within that umbrella, and their job is to control your mind, and they're working full time, round the clock.
Now you can rant. I'm done.
Okay, you're done. Okay,
I'm done.
yeah, I don't know.
Terry, I'll let Terry say something because she's shy. Unmute your mic, Terry.
Yeah, I'm just going to say it is about getting us not to really focus on what's happening. And so by getting us polarized and talking about this issue or that issue, it's dividing us. And so because we're divided and talking about something so what's the word I'm looking for? So emotional for us, we're not paying attention to things that are being taken away, and they're regulating so much away from us, and they don't want us to see that. It's like, oh my God, I turn around and guess what? I can't buy another herb. Now it's got some kind of regulation against it. And so there's regulations and regulations. So it's like, look over
also
there.
the inflation, like why
Magician stuff.
Yeah, the inflation too. I think that people should be talking about that more. Like, because like a lot of it like is like they blamed it on supply chain shortages at first. Remember that? Because of COVID. Remember that there aren't supply, like that's not going on anymore. And now you're seeing all these corporations have record profits, and that's a situation where the government could maybe come in and do something. Like when you're talking about food, like our food supply, because groceries are 3 times more expensive. I feel like that's a situation where the government could maybe step in and be like, "Wait a minute."
Well, what they could step in and do is stop throwing food in the garbage, because they had trucks of milk pouring it out in fields. They
Yeah,
had
yeah.
food being thrown away. They weren't being
Uh,
allowed.
But they're
well, we're talking about
regulating
now, though. I'm not talking
their
about that. I'm
food
talking about
supply now.
now.
They still only deliver 1/3 of the food that they gather.
Isn't that
And
messed
they're
up?
regulating things, right?
Yeah,
They're
they
they're
still only
allowing
deliver
different.
1/3.
Yeah, yeah. And even, like there's so much with the whole food industry. It really, it's a false. The rise in the prices is false, because
Well,
they purposely engineered things to be that
this
way.
goes
Yeah, yeah.
back to
It's an engineered rising in prices. That's
yeah,
really
this
what's going
goes
on.
back to the early 1900s when they stopped interstate commerce, and they started regulating and saying you can't grow food and sell it to your neighbor, and you can't grow food and sell it at the market, and they tried to stop these. This is the beginning of the stop of
Yeah, yeah. Because I can talk about my experiences off world. Okay, and it's like off world, food is way different on most planets. And there aren't grocery stores. Grocery stores are not a thing. They literally do not exist, because you're going out, you're getting your fruits from somebody who it's literally their fruits. It's like they on the street, they have a stand, they sit there all day, they sell their fruits. It's what they do. You're getting your meat from some guy, same fucking thing. He sits there all day with his meats and he sells meats to people. You're getting that economy is a thriving economy, because there aren't these corporations that are just middlemaning everything and sucking up all the profits and sucking everybody dry. That's how an economy is supposed to operate. Is it's supposed to be direct. You're supposed to get your meat directly from the guy who fucking butchered the cow, not from some fucking guy who doesn't even know the cow's name, doesn't know where the cow came from, like doesn't know anything about the cow. It's one of thousands of nameless cows that are treated like shit. You know what I mean? Like that's not how things are supposed to be. Like we have a society that is purposefully made that way so they can siphon energy from us, because the taxes that are going towards the Draco, like people don't know this, and it's not really talked about that much. Like, yeah, we got taxes going towards like the humans here and the fucked up people here, and the government taking advantage of us. But some of our taxes are literally going to the Draco Empire. Literally, we pay them for protection, for them to allow us to just be here, basically. And we also pay them in humans. We pay them 10,000 humans every year. On Earth, we have to give them 10,000 human beings for them to eat, or they'll like totally annihilate us. Like we don't understand how fucked up the universe is, and why the government. Part of the reason why they don't want to tell us about it is because they're afraid of how we'd react. Because it's kind of scary. Really, the truth is scary. Like 11-foot tall lizard people that eat people. That's not really for the faint of art. You know what I mean?
Right. But even, I mean, if you didn't use off world, even if you used here, like we had a system where we were working for ourselves. Like your life was you getting up in the morning, taking care of your farm and your food yourself. But then we had to get this industrial complex, right? Where now we got to get you out of your house and here. So we're going to babysit your kids with school, and we're going to get you to go to the job, and we're going to decentralize your
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
And can I talk about something too? You gotta, because this is a good point to make here. To segue
okay,
to
go
something.
ahead. Because
What they'll do is they'll use
industrializing. Why are we doing that?
So they'll use issues that are not even like bad, like things like to make bad things happen. Like for instance, like and that's what people got to realize with their social engineering is it's more about what. Don't look at the cause or look at the outcome that they're trying to create. Like for instance, like one of the things that they did is with the women's rights movement. That's a good thing, right? Women should have rights. Like women were being treated like property. Like that wasn't okay, right? Like that needed to happen. Society needed to have that. We needed to have that push forward, that leap forward for women. But what they did is they used that as a way to chip at the family. Because remember back in the day, they turned it into, okay, if you want to work now as a woman, you can work now. Like, go ahead, you can work now. And it took a while for it to
You
really.
can have a bank account.
Yeah, exactly. You can have a bank account, whatever, which is great. That's good. But what they did now is, it used to be a family needed one breadwinner. That's it. Remember that? One breadwinner is all you needed. One stay at home. Obviously, usually the mother. That's how society used to work.
So they scammed us.
They scammed us and gave us no. Now both parents have to work, but hey, women have rights now, and it's like, look, we can have both. We can have women allowed to being
I'll
allowed
just pay both of you
to have. We just can't allow them to chip away at our rights like that. Like women should have the ability to work a job if they want, but also like you should be able to decide like you can just the stay at home dad is, and then the mom works, whatever works. Society can operate that way, but they took advantage of that to make it so that both parents have to work, and so that you're so exhausted that even when you are home, you have the kid in front of the TV and their Nintendo or whatever. And when you're working, they're being raised by the state. So basically, you're not the one raising your kids.
So before we finish, I just want to finish that out because people want to know more about your off-world stuff. So this is would be why the cost, the pay has been frozen so that now we can pay both of you half. So since you both are going to work, then we'll pay you both half.
Like for instance, like this apartment that me and Kat live in, we don't even have a family, and we would be like if I lived in this apartment, which is a single person apartment, it's a studio apartment. I'm in a kitchen right now, right? We got another one room, like it would be like damn near. I'd be struggling so hard if I did this by myself. So like you can't even be a single person in this society without struggling.
So that's why in 2000 I was making 40,000, and then in 2017 I was still making 40,000 after I went to school to become a medical lab technician and had all these skills, and still 15 years later I was still making the same amount because since we're both going to work, we're just going to pay both of you less. So now people want to know your off-world experience. How did you even find out that you've been off-world, and where have you been? Because he's like, I need to know about this Draco stuff that you're talking about since you're bringing that into this conversation.
Yeah, I've been to a lot of different planets. Probably some of them, a lot of them I don't remember the names of and stuff. But I've been to Mars. I've been to the moon, like Earth's moon, and then a lot of other moons. There's colonies on a lot of moons. I've been to Ceres. I've been to Centurion 5 is a planet that I was on for a long time. I've been to Maldek. People talk about Maldek. I've been to Maldek, which doesn't exist anymore. It's like the asteroid belt now. And like I think Mars is part of Maldek, but it used to be a huge planet. But yeah, I've been there. I've been like all over the place. I've been to a lot of different planets. Yeah, but how it all happened is, well, I'm not from this planet. That'd be a start. I used to live on a space ark, flying around all over the place. It's a really long story, but I'm part of the secret space programs because of my starseed lineage, because I have abilities, because of my DNA, because of my bloodline, for the families that I'm a part of and stuff like that, and because they're really obsessed with that stuff. Yeah, I was part of the Montauk project, so I'm a time traveler. I've been sent I'm just used basically like I can go to alternate realities. I can go to other timelines, and I don't get sick from it. A lot of people would get sick from it, or they Daryl James has talked about how most people can only do the 20 and backs like once or twice or maybe a few times. Well, I can do it over and over again, over and over and over and over, pretty much endlessly. I don't think everyone can do that. So yeah, like I'm used for that stuff a lot. And then Yeah, this interview with Sean and his friend. What's his co-host name again?
Chris, Christopher. How could we forget?
Yeah,
Anatra.
he's a great guy. Great
Chris
guy.
Sinatra. Yeah, Chris Sinatra's specialty is what is it? I can't remember my words today. Mandela effects. So
Now, yeah.
yeah. So Christopher Sinatra's specialty is he was the first person to tell us that your teeth are like time crystals. So you can tell your time travel sequence if you have deterioration in your teeth, that this is a signal of your experience time travel. So you've been to, how did you even come about remembering anyway? How did you come across your memories?
It's kind of complicated. Like I kind of always had them, but I buried a lot of stuff. Um, a big part of it was I was in the TAG program, the Talented and Gifted program. I guess this is the biggest thing. It didn't make sense. There's a discrepancy in my life that didn't make sense, and once I figured that out and how it was related to all this stuff, that's when that's when I started realizing it like in a bigger way. Like I always knew there's something happening, but this is what really started things is when I realized like the fact that in the second grade I was in the Talented and Gifted program, which is like this government program where they help kids like excel or whatever in life and like propel them forward to be successful in the field that they would probably be successful in or whatever. And so I was in the Talented and Gifted program in second grade. Going into third grade, I wasn't in it anymore. And so I asked the teacher, like, hey, what's going on? Like, why am I not in the Talented and Gifted program anymore? Like that. And she's like, oh, I don't know. I wasn't your teacher last year. I'm not part of the TAG thing. I don't know. And these other kids who were a part of the TAG program with me were like, oh, you weren't in it with us. What are you talking about? You're like crazy. And they're like dead serious. They're like, you weren't in the TAG program. You're making this all up. Like you weren't in there with us. And I was like, no, I was. Like, anyway, years and years later, I was okay. Wait, those kids weren't just screwing with me. Like, I literally was not in the TAG program. They literally like were being serious. They never saw me there. It was what they call screen memories. They can give you screen memories, false implanted memories. So and that discrepancy is what made me realize who was allowed to travel unregulated and provide the method. Thank you. The Montauk Project is I wasn't really unregulated. At a certain point I kind of got unregulated, I guess, but it's complicated, Matthew, because I'm starting from the beginning with you. They use this for slavery mostly. So, like, most of the stuff that I've done where I was on other planets, like, for instance, let's talk about Maldek. I said I was on Maldek. I got kidnapped and brought there and forced to work for Alexander Paramanov. Shane Sador, who's been, like, Raised by Giants, he was a part of that, which actually I got a memory back I'll share publicly for the first time today. That guy's a piece of shit. I don't try to talk about people on shows, but he says all the SSP people are fake. And he says that Shane Sador, this guy, Shane Bales, Shane Sador, I don't know what to call him. He's got like two different names he uses. But he says we're all fake and stuff like that. He went on Penny Bradley's show and said we're all fake. So I invited him on my show to talk about it, and he was really rude on my show. Like you can watch it. It's on my Disclosure Now YouTube, Shane Bales. And I got taken to Maldek the day that I was supposed to talk to Shane Bales. That whole thing that happened. It happened through the Swiss Hotel. I was staying at the Swiss Hotel in Chicago, and this lady came into my room. Like I also have the story of that abduction, Swiss Hotel abduction, on my YouTube. Like this lady, like in a bellhop uniform, she played this tone from these speakers. It altered me out. She put me in a clone body. They had a clone in the next room over, like brought me through a portal. Like I was on Maldek, and like one of the things that I did not remember until today was a conversation I had with Shane before he killed me. Because I don't remember it, it goes blank, but I was on my knees with my hands tied behind my back, and he's standing in front of me with a sword in his hand. What the fuck do you think he's going to do with that sword, right? I mean, what he's telling me is he's like, yeah, you really think that because I told him, like, he tells me I remember everything. They let me remember everything, like in these programs, the programs I've been in. Like he said it in the interview that, yeah, like I've been in these programs too, but no, the secret space programs aren't real, and they let me remember everything I would know. And in this memory that I just got back today, which is real, this happened. It's a real event that happened. He was like, he had this sword, and I was on my knees, and he was standing there, and he's like, yeah, you're not gonna. He's like, you know, when I told you that I'm gonna remember this, all I am. Like I remember everything. They let me remember everything they do, and I'm gonna remember all of this, and you won't. You're not gonna remember any of this. I'm like, yes, I will. I'm gonna remember this. He's like, no, you won't. You won't remember this because you couldn't listen. You couldn't just follow orders. You couldn't just stay in line. He's like, and now he's like, you could be living a nice life like me. You could be, you know, treated great. But instead, you chose to be a defector and a coward or something. I can't remember. He was just treating me like shit. And he was just like, and he's like, yeah, I'm gonna remember this whole conversation, every little detail of it, and you won't remember any of it because you don't get that privilege. We took that privilege away from you. You don't get to remember the lifetimes that we steal from you. And I was just like, fuck you, Shane. I am going to remember this. Fuck you. I will remember this. And yeah, I remember it. So, fuck you, Shane. I remember. Like, I do remember what happened. Maybe not every single little detail, but it'll come out. I'll remember all of it. And I do remember that conversation with you where you told me that I wouldn't remember it in a mocking manner. So, yeah, this guy, he works for the enemy. And I just figured I'd bring up that memory because I literally had that today and I wanted to state it publicly. And I don't know. I guess it's like a bad rule of thumb to talk bad about other people on other people's shows, but I couldn't help it. Fuck that guy. And that memory, like, just bothers me. It also bothers me that he, like, says he came out and said we're all fake. And his job is to go around and make us look bad. He knows we're real. He knows the truth. He knows that I'm being fucking kidnapped. He literally was there. Like, that guy is a real piece of shit. Like, you got to be a real piece of shit person to see someone like, and you don't know another thing, you know what makes it worse? When I was at Montauk, when I was a kid, a child, when they would leave me in a room all by myself with nothing, no clothes, it's cold, for days. They'd leave me in there. And he would come in there sometimes with maybe a blanket for me or something, food, usually food. And he'd be like, you know, he could get in a lot of trouble for doing that. I'm his brother. I'm his half brother. I'm related to Shane. Okay? It's all he's gonna say. What a real wingnut. What a real crazy guy. He's so insane. He's saying I'm his brother. He's so crazy. He's like the girl that showed up to my door and said I was a trauma twin. Whatever. He's my brother, and he would bring me food. He'd say, and he'd help take care of me and clean me up a little bit and stuff like that. And like in this dark place, he would help me. And he got transferred to Area 51. And I remember him telling me, he's like, hey, you need to be strong. Like, I don't know when I'm going to see you again. And I'm not going to be able to help you anymore, but you're strong. You're going to survive. You need to promise me you're going to survive without me. You need to promise me. And I promised him I would survive, and I did. And now this guy acts like he doesn't remember me? Acts like he doesn't remember that? Like, how fucked up do you got to be? Like, how fucked up do they got you? Like, how far gone do these evil Satanist pricks got this guy to where he's going to lie to his own brother through his teeth about the memories that they share in these programs, and on top of that say that they're all fake, they're all virtual reality, none of it's real. I mean, that you have to be a real fucking piece of shit to go down that road with your own fucking brother. But anyway, that's the whole thing. I couldn't help but tell that story. I think your microphone's still off, Eric.
I didn't know if they had more questions.
Yeah, like I said, I with the time travel and everything, it wasn't really necessarily unregulated. It was government projects. I was working for people. I was being told to do things, and I was following orders. So actually very, very regulated, I would say.
I don't know if you know this.
Go ahead. How old were you when you were first recruited to the programs? Like through Montauk. So how old would you?
I'm not
I know
from
you.
this. You know, it's confusing because I don't think I'm from this reality. I think I was implanted in this reality. So technically, before this lifetime even ever existed, it was conceptualized in the programs. So that would mean that, you know, there is no like when. My whole life is part of the programs, and in fact, I think that's actually the first time I properly answered that question. Because I get asked that a lot, and I usually say, "Oh, I guess at birth or 6 years old," but no, it's literally my whole life is manufactured. I would go hook me up. Nah, dude, you want to know how they get you to do your job, David? They torture the people that you love in front of you if you don't obey them. You want to know some of the stuff that I have had to do? You do remember the Crusades? If you ever hear the Crusades, you ever hear those? Whole villages of people getting completely decimated, every single man, woman, and child being murdered. I was there. Would you want to do that for your job? Would you want to kill babies? Does that sound fun to you?
We are on Facebook, bro.
I'm just being real. I really don't like it when people act like this shit's fun.
I know.
I really don't like that.
I didn't really plan to have that conversation.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand. It is really interesting, right? Getting to go through portals, all this cool stuff. That's stuff that should be for the public. It should be used for a beautiful thing. David should be able to use it to go check out another planet and hang out. And for that wonder he has of the technology, like, this is so cool. Oh my God, I wish I could go to another planet. That's a beautiful thing. That's normal. But unfortunately, the price that I had to pay to do all this stuff is far greater than if I could just like not, you know what I mean? Like not be a part of these programs, I just wouldn't. But like, cause like, yeah, they're so messed up. Like if you read my book, I've got a book, by the way, everyone, it's on Amazon, Time and Space Unlimited. I go into the details of like how they do it. And it's mind control programs. Like to David, like, and I don't mean to be like, you weren't disrespectful. You're like, sign me up. I go, wow. Cause it does sound interesting. It is, but I want people to understand the darkness behind it. Like most of the military programs that are doing this stuff have Satanists in them, and they're doing dark stuff with kids. I mean, you know, with the Presidio incident with Michael Aquino and stuff like that. Like it's real dark stuff. And I'm not saying there isn't good stuff happening and good groups trying to do stuff, but it's there's a lot of darkness in this. I'm like, yeah, they motivate you by taking the people that you love away from you. That's how they pay you, is, oh, you just get to be with the person you care about. And we can take them away from you at a whim whenever we want. So you better follow orders. Like that kind of stuff. It's kind of really like especially like the Montauk Project Phoenix. It was literally a horror world. It was a horror reality. It was a horror show. I mean, like I said, I was left in a cage when I was a child. They paid me in ice cream sandwiches to open portals. They'd starve me, you know, and they'd be like, hey, if you can open this, if you can pull this off, we'll give you whatever you want to eat. And me being like a 6-year-old kid, I said I wanted an ice cream sandwich. So they would have ice cream sandwiches for me, and I'd rip holes through time and space for ice cream sandwiches. Like, it's pretty messed up. So it's like, yeah, I think that's really it. That's a real important point to make. Is like, I have a very interesting story. It's fascinating. I totally understand that, but at the same time, I want people to understand the gravity of it and respect that there's a gravity to it. You know, I have family members. Yeah, you think they would do good, but hey, watch the movie, David. If you have Netflix, David Nash, watch The Adam Project. It literally shows you how this time travel works and how basically, like, you can go in with the best intentions, but then the corporation with millions of dollars that gave you the funding to open the portals comes in and fucks up all those good intentions you had. It's called money. It's called power. It screws up everything all the time. Theoretically, we could use time travel to just fix everything and make everything great. But that's not what. Look at the world around you. Does it look like they used the time travel to fix everything and make everything great? No, they didn't. They used it to make themselves more powerful. But don't worry, it doesn't have to stay this way forever. We can change things. I'm not trying to be like all like doom and gloom. Like, we can change things. We have a lot of power. Like, for instance, like earlier on, you guys were talking about the future and how certain people like to say what the future is. And I, as a time traveler, because people ask me that all the time, what's the future going to look like? And I love that question, and I love being able to tell them, you kind of decide that, buddy. What frequency are you on? What do you think the future looks like? What are your thoughts? What are your feelings? What are you responding to? Because the universe is this multi-dimensional quantum thing where there's all these different realities, and you can literally kind of shift slightly and move around and decide your future. Every decision you make is creating a new reality for yourself. You know, there's versions of you that decided to not go out for lunch for your friend yesterday, and those two lives are slightly different because of that. There's all these different realities. So it's like we have all of the power is what I'm trying to say. Is like when people ask like, what's the future like, I would say I can't give you some grandiose answer. I can tell you about some futures that I've seen. I remember a timeline when Hillary Clinton was president and World War III happened already. Like so like so if I would have years ago when I got those memories back, I'm like, oh, that's gonna happen. I would have been wrong. Doesn't mean that you know what I'm saying? So I'm not gonna tell you what the future is because I really actually don't know. Sorry, bit of a rant. I like ranting, I guess.
So I have a question for you then. Are you, because of all that you've experienced, are you able to break free of the of those powers that are controlling you? Are you able to go back onto your timeline to figure out where they entrapped you and how to free yourself from them?
I think I'm on the process of doing that right now. I'm understanding consent. I'm understanding the ways that they've tricked me into consenting, into getting what they want out of me. But I would say that so one important aspect of this to understand is altars. So this altar is I call myself Arkheim, and I'm one of a system. And there's other versions of me, and really Arkheim is more of the name of the whole system. But I just present myself as that. But I have all these altars. So one of them is Jacob. Jacob was at Montauk. Then there's another one, Ryan Sterling. Ryan Sterling worked for the CIA in the 1950s, and he also, which I wasn't even born in 1991, so that's fun. And then there's also a version of Ryan Sterling that worked off-world on Centurion 5, and he is not aware of his lifetime at all on Earth. He doesn't remember Earth. So like, and he does similar stuff that he did. Basically a time cop. That's what he was here. He was trying to stop JFK from getting killed. Ryan Sterling, when he was working for the CIA, he was trying to. Well, the memories aren't clear there because I actually think it was the CIA who did kill him. But my job was a time cop, and I knew that there was this assassination, and I was trying to stop it from happening, and I didn't succeed at my job, obviously. But yeah, I can actually talk about that a little bit too. The altars, though, there's all these different altars that did different things, and they have their own memories. So that's the thing is, and so I get the memories and they bleed through, and the altars bleed through, but I am not the altars, so they're not my memories. So the altars have to, like for instance, if you ask me to remember something, the altar would have to take over, and I'd have to become that altar for me to go in the memories and just look around and remember things. Otherwise, I can only remember their memory, the picture that was given to me of the memory already. It's really complicated and confusing, and I'm sorry for that, but it is just the way it is. But I forgot what I was gonna say. I traveled mostly through portals and stargates, but also on crafts as well. But in the military projects, they use stargates and portals for most stuff, and crafts going through portals and stargates too. Like whole crafts can go through them. Some are that big. But yeah, so like, oh yeah, and so so how this works is like these lives that I've done this, like, so what they can do is they can take your consciousness, right? They can come in your room or whatever, or take your consciousness, and so they can come, grab you, take your consciousness, put it in a clone, right? and then they can grab that clone of you, and you go through the other side of the portal. You live a whole life. You come back, you're an old man. You're aged. You look like 80s. You look your age because you lived the whole 80 years, right? They lay it on that table. They put you only 5 minutes in the room. So 80 years on the other side of the portal. You're an old man now, but in that room, you just went through that portal 5 minutes ago, and now you're back as an old man. And then they take your consciousness from the old man body, put it back into your young body, and not only was it an altar, but there's also the aspect of people don't remember their past lives normally, right? So you were in another body that's kind of the equivalent to a past life. So through this, they don't think people are going to remember stuff. I remember stuff because of how psychic I am, and because of my abilities, and because of the fact that I'm able to remote view my own memories, whether I can actually remember them or not. A lot of times I'm able to look at my memories through my abilities rather than actually. It's hard to explain. Like there's reasons why they use me for the programs, and some of those reasons that they use me in the programs actually aided in helping me remember that I was in these programs and wake up to what they're doing to me, if that makes any sense. But yeah, is there any more questions from the audience? Do you guys got any more questions? Do you want to talk about anything else? Recycling consciousness. I don't know what you mean by that. It's the same consciousness, yeah. Like my brain, my soul is fractured, and it has countless amount, I don't know, hundreds of personalities within it and soul fragments within it that make up the one soul. And so, yeah.
Consciousness pods from being used to transverse time and space through variance computations is very complicated. These tell pods whether chair brain implant interfere with the body's consciousness or planetary quarantine field itself, and filters incarnations through the field. They can be used to transport people cheaply across vast distances in space and time. Stargates used in the Draco Empire are elites are using too many energy resources for costly, showy features to make. What? And Christopher, he always has really powerful comments.
It's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound wrong to me. There's also, multiple different ways of, not every portal is the same. Like some of them are like the Tesla portals, and then there's the method where you use a mirror. You turn a mirror into a portal, which is much safer. Are portals black going on to them? No. So the mirror ones are, so you can use a mirror to open a portal. What we did at Montauk is we usually used a mirror and the trip chair, which it made your thoughts more powerful. So like you could think of an apple and it would, boop, apple would appear, right? You take a bite of it and everything, right? We use that to imagine wormholes through space and time, and we used a mirror to rip those wormholes through, and you just walk through it like a door. So like we could walk to ancient Rome just through like a door in the room. And then there's Tesla ones. The Tesla teleporters, you need two. So you can go back in time with them, but you won't have a way back because you don't have a Tesla teleporter there. So normally you can only go to the future with Tesla teleporters, because the Tesla teleporter has to still be there. So, and they have problems with radiation and stuff like that. And then there's other forms of portals as well too. That's definitely not all of them, but those are some of the ones that I remember.
Chair, and they talked about that on Space Jam.
Yeah, by the way, they use Space Jam for monarch mind control sex programming of kids. With all the characters in there and stuff. I've seen the pornographic version of Space Jam. Oh. Michael Jordan's in it and everything. Oh, wow. Yeah, Michael Jordan getting the cartoon characters are like going at it on him. Yeah. On Michael Jordan, like homosexually. Like I've seen that. Yeah, that exists. That footage is out there somewhere. I wonder if Michael Jordan knows about it, or probably not. They probably have an altar of him or a clone or something that they did it with. No, they had us change clothes and stuff like that. I mean, I could go back there in weird clothes, but they would notice me and be like, "Where the fuck are you coming from?" No, we would have the clothes and stuff like that, and we'd go back there dressed up and in the garb of the time.
Do you dream at night? If so, do you journal? She said, yeah, was that just you saying that?
That's Chastity. Is that Chastity? Isn't that
Yeah,
Chastity?
that's Chastity. But she was saying she has 6 to 7 dreams a night. But I think somebody else was saying this too, and it was like it's exhausting.
I dream a lot, but like I don't remember my dreams well enough to like really keep a journal. Sometimes maybe what I should do is I should keep a notebook at the edge of my bed. So because sometimes I'll even remember things. Like I remember crazy stuff. Like had visions in my sleep, and then I found out things. Like like yeah, like I've seen like I'll see things half asleep, and I'll have visions, and they mean stuff, and I have to write them down because otherwise I forget them, and I'll find out stuff like yeah.
I think most of the time people see stuff, but they just ignore it because you think it's a daydream or your imagination. Is that
That
true?
could be.
Because I used to see a person and I used to see him in Egyptian clothes, and I'm like, but I never took it as anything. And then another woman, I would see this circle on her head until I found somebody who really understood what was going on with themselves. And when I asked her, she said, yeah, you see me at a different time, and this is what I look like. I had this mark on my head because, of the job that she had. So I think a lot of people like would say, oh, well, you're just imagining, or sure, you're just daydreaming or dreaming. But I think we're just trained to ignore it, right?
Maybe I don't know. That could be
Well,
part
Terry
of
could
it.
probably discuss that, right? Terry? Yes, I'm
Yeah,
making you work today, even though you don't get paid.
Yeah, I know it was asking me this question now I don't even know how to answer that.
Well, we have
I don't
these.
even know how to answer that one.
Well, I think you could, because I think that you do certain work and you see things during your
Right.
work that most people would say, how do you know that's real? So,
Well, I suppose it just depends on how much you have explored your consciousness, right? And so when you are in contact with that aspect of yourself, then you realize that, well, our reality isn't exactly what they want us to believe. So I can't even answer it. I think it just depends on your development in your conscious awareness, right? Because I mean, there's this whole premise that we're living in a matrix, and I can look around and I can say, yeah, I think we are living in a matrix. I can talk to my neighbor down the hall and say, you're crazy and you've been reading too much stuff on the internet. So it's where people's belief systems are, and if they want to live in a box, it's when you start opening the box up, then you start to realize, hey, there's more to reality than what I've been told. But that's about programming, right? We're all programmed, and the system wants to program us so that we stay in a box. And so when somebody comes out and says, wait a minute, I can move, like Arkheim, his consciousness is in these altars and all that. People are going to say, well, what are you talking about? But when you understand that our reality is not what we think it is, he's telling us this is a reality, but people can choose not to believe it. And if you're living in this little box, you're just going to say, it's not true. But it just depends on how far people are ready to explore what reality is.
Yeah. For me, like with all my like, when it comes to like figuring out what I experience is real or whatnot, like I I know screen memories exist and stuff, but for me, I have emotional, and this is a thing that's hard to forget, is emotional moments. So, for instance, even that moment with Shane, the reason why I could remember that is because of the emotion. My brother is like betraying me, just being an awful piece of shit to me, and I felt terrible in that moment. And there's an emotional trauma behind that, and so yeah, that's part of the reason why I remembered it. And so that's how I know it's real. When memories are real is when there's an emotional scar there, because you can't fake that. You can't fake emotional trauma or emotional pain or even joy. And as far as the question before, like Matthew was asking, I've been public for 3 or 4 years, something like that.
And I'm gonna throw my hat in and say I totally agree, because with my past life regression, and I saw when my wife died, Harry's known me since maybe 2022. I had that regression in 2020. I have poured out in tears remembering this, and it's 2024, and it wasn't that long ago that we had a discussion and I was bawling out. You can't bawl out in tears or have physical pain or physical like flying on a firebird, that I felt the full exhilaration of what it feels like to fly in my body. So when you have that physical manifestation of it, I just really highly doubt that you can produce and fake a memory with emotions, right? And physical
Mm-hmm.
feelings.
Yeah, and that's part of the thing that I think they didn't depend on is because, like, James Rink asked Preston Nichols, he's a programmer at Montauk. He's like, what made you think like no one will remember this? He said, oh well, who would want to go into their own little horror world willingly? Who would want to do that? And it's kind of like one of those things where I understand their mentality, like, oh, people won't want to face the truth. It's too dark. It's too hard. It's too heavy. But it's like when you have this, when it gives you such emotional pain, you kind of have to. Like, it doesn't matter whether it's a horror world or it's too dark. It's like, yeah, yeah, well, that trauma's in me. I'm carrying it. So that's a really stupid assumption and response to that flaw in your system. Like, people are gonna remember, dude. Like, you fucked up. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of my opinion on that.
Hmm.
Look at how cute this cat is. Look
Yeah.
at her.
You get bit by a dog, that's the memory. You're going to have trauma from being, you're like, wait a minute, calm down. You're not going to get bit. And it's like, no, I already know what it feels like to get bit. So that thing just keeps recycling. Um, I don't know if you wanted to share any more, Terry, or if you had any more questions. And yes, it is a beautiful cat. And thanks for hanging out,
Well,
Kirsten.
yeah, I think that cat is just amazing. But I think we have. I mean, this is the discussions we could have can go. We can go down many different portals, so to speak, and talk
Yeah.
about some of this stuff. But I think I know that wasn't what we had planned for the day, but maybe we can have Arkheim on
I'd love to
another
come on
time
here
just to
again.
talk about some
Yeah,
of.
I'd love to
Yeah,
come on here again.
you got a live crowd here. Yeah, because I guess the only other thing was just discernment when it comes to these AI videos and
Yeah,
AI.
yeah, we can talk about that real quick. I mean, basically, like, um, just like, yeah, I see a lot of people in this community being like, use discernment, and just like sharing like fake information all in the same breath. And I think really the whole thing that I want to say about the use discernment thing, and we could do a whole interview just on discernment, right? That could be, we could go on for an hour about it. But the main thing is like people need to, when they say that, use discernment, they need to stop saying that in passing, like it's some real easy thing to do that it just takes a second. No, like using discernment is something that you have to continuously do. It's an exhaustive process that you never stop, right? And it's unfortunate because we live in, but the truth is that we live in a world where there's disinformation everywhere. There's bullshit information everywhere. There's psychological operations going on. There's psychological manipulations happening. And you have to be very vigilant in your dissemination of information and discernment of what is true and what is not true. And yeah, that's really just my biggest message is people should stop acting like that's like so easy to do and so simple. It's really not. Like some people say like, oh, use your gut. Just use your gut. And then these same people that just use their gut are sharing fake AI images. So I guess your gut's not good enough then, right? Like I just think like, and I get it. And then another aspect of this is it's so important that like, okay, if we didn't have people who are willing to question the narrative and what happened to my camera? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
If we didn't have people that were willing to question the narrative, right? And like, question the truth and believe, oh, what if this crazy thing that I'm learning about right now, what if that is true? I don't know. Like, right? Like people wouldn't listen to me if people like a guy like me talking about some of these horror programs that need to get shut down. So important people know about this stuff. If they didn't have an open enough mind, they wouldn't be listening to me. So it is important that people are being willing to look at alternative information and as what if that is fact? What if that is true? But that's like super duper important. And that I guess it's just we need to recognize the fact that we're in an information war. So when you do that, like you literally have to like it's like I said, the exhaustive process of figuring out the truth. And if you really do want to find the truth, you unfortunately just kind of have to look at the big picture. Like, oh, this guy's saying this over here, this guy's saying this over here, this person's saying this over here, da da da, and then it all makes the big picture because people that don't even know each other and stuff like that are connecting dots that they don't even realize that they're connecting together. And it's like you said, there's all these different little groups within our group and da-da-da-da-da. And like because of that, there's not just one person that's saying one thing. So you can create a concise image. And like I said, unfortunately, it's like if you're a truther, if you call yourself a truther, you care about the truth. You decide to go down the rabbit hole. Just remember that the rabbit hole, you're just always going to be climbing around in it. You're always going to be shining that light. Oh, is this real? Is this not? Examining things. It's a process, you know what I mean? And so that's really all I'm saying. I'm not saying like just give up or don't ever believe in alternative information because it's probably bullshit. No, that's like you got the middle path is what I'm saying here is be willing to look at alternative information, but also don't just blindly believe it at the same time. You know what I mean? Information is no good if you don't apply it to yourself. Yeah, that's true too. Yeah, a lot of people will give advice that they would never even take in their own lives, you know what I mean, of themselves and stuff like that, and learn modalities, information, and do jack shit. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Well, guys, I thank you so much. You were so active. Kristen, David, Chastity, Jax, Christopher, Daryl, Matthew. I think I'll thank Matthew for hanging out with us. But it was cool. We got off subject, but it was super cool. And I'm glad that we finally did get together because you are definitely a positive supporter, and I'm a positive supporter of you. And I love you, guy. I like you a lot. You know,
I love you too, Cosmic Mama. Appreciate you, Arkheim.
He represents.
And Terry, and Terry as well. Thank you for being here with us, Terry.
And Danny, and let us know more in the comments what all you would like to know more about Arkheim, and if you want to have him hang out with us again in the Matrix Minds, because we're broadcasting in the Matrix Mind and on YouTube and on Rumble right now. So give us comments. Let us know what we did good. And maybe keep the rest to yourself. I was kidding.
That's funny.
Nah, you can whatever. I don't know. I got thick skin, so it's all good. Everybody, have a great day, a great afternoon.
Right.
It was great having
I'll
you.
see you guys later. I'm gonna take off. Have a good one, guys. Thanks for having me. Bye.
Okay. We'll probably do our Space Jam and dance our way out of here. What